Welcome to the Bright Commerce Podcast.
Episode 10. How are you feeling today,
Woo!
Judd?
Holy cow. We actually have some followers now, too, which is kind of crazy.
I can't believe it. All right, so
Yeah.
episode 10 today covers um scaling from solo, meaning you got your agency, you're a one-man band. At what point do you grow? What challenges you encounter while growing, the good and the bad. So let's kind of get into it. So Judd, tell us a little bit about your background, like how long you been doing this? You've been at it for quite some time, right?
Yeah. So I had a company in the early 2000s, Digital Complexion, that was called. Had a
Yeah,
partner
I
I
remember
worked
that.
with. Yeah. And basically, we did a lot of real estate stuff, a lot of local stuff, and it was good. We had a lot, did a lot of good, cool things. Loved Flash. We talked about that in the other show.
Yeah.
Building sites in Flash, I love doing. It was basically HTML and tables, Photoshop type websites. Um, in that process, it was just me and my partner basically doing stuff. So
Did you did you do any
we didn't
e-com?
have staff.
You doing any e-com back then?
We did, and that was hard because
That was
there was
hard
no
back then, yeah.
platforms.
No.
We basically did ASP shopping
Oh,
carts
classic ASP.
or Cold Fusion.
Oh
Remember
gosh,
the
yeah,
Cold Fusion
From
days?
Adobe, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, .NET. I also started to get into around 2006, 7.
Yeah.
And that ASP.NET storefront, which you know of. Um, and I built George Foreman Grill's website in ASP.NET storefront, and that worked pretty damn good back in the day as
Yeah,
far as a good
by that
storefront.
time, that was going back like 20 years now. By that time, e-com had
Yeah,
definitely developed, right? I think before that, I remember there was Miva merchant shops,
yeah. Mevo was around.
right? And then what was the
Yeah,
other one? I think Google Shopping or not Google, I'm sorry, Yahoo Shops.
yeah. They were around. I did. I remember also. That's when Amazon started getting into having their own stores as well inside. So that was like the beginning around 2008, I think it was. I actually flew out to Amazon for George Foreman Grill's, to start their shopping.
Oh,
Um,
cool. So this was when Amazon like opened up the marketplace. Is that
yeah,
or
so I
directly connected with
got
brands? Was that
yeah, it was cool. I mean, I was just a tech guy back then, so I was at a big table with a bunch of people, and I just answered tech questions. What we're currently using, what we were. I think we also were using Channel Advisor, which was a way to kind of take your inventory and put. I think Channel Advisor is still around, but it was a way to take our inventory and put into eBay and all these different places. That was one of the first ones. Bazaar Voice. I don't know if you've ever heard of Bazaar Voice, but they
no?
were like the
That's not.
first type of trust pilot that was out there. I kind of, I gotta look. I don't even know if I know there's been so many other ones that came out. These were like the main ones. Bronto. I don't know if you remember Bronto for email marketing.
No.
These
No,
are all old
you gotta
ones, huh?
understand at that time I was more on the server side of things.
Yeah,
Like,
you're on the server side.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I could spew out different company names, that, rendered services for what we needed, like intrusion prevention, and
Yeah.
slash security, backup tools, backing up servers 15, 20 years ago was a heavy
Yeah.
lift, man. It was always very challenging. And it's funny, I
Well, and
remember what that
security was like it was the Wild West back then too.
what oh security was too. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I remember one time at my old company, we had an attorney come in and essentially, guide us on what to do when we found malware or pornography. Uh
Yeah. Oh,
specifically
I've seen
specific
some crazy stuff when it comes.
yes.
I've seen like I had a client that she had her site hacked, and it wasn't good imagery on her homepage, and it was stuck there for more than a week
Oh
because
wow.
the developer something happened where they didn't get paid, and the developer left it up, and she called me up to ask me to help her, and I was like, I can't get this down for you. I'm sorry. I have to have access
The
to your
server.
site
Yeah.
or your DNS. And she's like, oh, he's the one that did it all. And I'm
Oh
like,
God.
he left it up for a long time, man. Like,
Wow.
yeah. So it back then it's a little different. I think now, obviously, it's a lot more legalities have happened. As far as your property and like if something were to
Yeah.
happen and be
Regardless
compromised, you still
though,
have a.
regardless, I always advise customers to purchase their own domain names. Always.
Oh yeah. But you know how many people still buy other
Yeah.
people's domain names to lock them in?
All
And
that.
dude, that's a sure sign of a shady web
No
developer if he's
doubt.
buying your domain name
Yes.
and
Yeah.
locking
Yeah.
you in. That is not a good web developer. That
Yeah.
is
Stay away
somebody
from that.
that's yeah, it's a bad tactic, and it's less and less. I remember about 10, 12 years ago, that was way more prevalent. Like every time I'd have to talk to somebody about migrating a site,
Yeah.
oh, my developer has that, and I'd have to transfer it into her own account. Such a pain in the ass.
I know.
Nowadays, I
I
think
know.
people are wising up to ensuring that they own
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
own domain
Although
name.
you get the customer here and there, the company here and there, where they just have resources everywhere. They'll have stuff with like network solutions,
Yeah.
GoDaddy, register.com, Emom, and you want to tell them like, hey, listen, ideally you want to consolidate all this and manage it from one place. Otherwise,
Also, you'd probably save money doing that.
yes,
Yeah.
I think it's more about not losing, like you don't want to lose a domain name, if you've been in business for X amount of years, that's terrible.
I I've had a few customers I've had for years that have lost literally their domain not once but twice
Oh gosh.
because they didn't renew it. Literally didn't renew it,
Yeah.
and I forgot like one of them. Someone was squatting on it, waiting it for it not to be renewed, and they I guess he waited 2 weeks or so, didn't even realize his site was down. And that's gotten better too, by the way. Like if we actually have patch stack and a few different tools we use that will notify us if a client's site is needs to be renewed because you can't count on the client to renew the site sometimes. So now we get notifications for each client, and if their domain name needs to be renewed, we just follow up with them saying, hey, by
Yeah.
the way, your domain needs to be renewed under your credit card,
Yeah.
like make
That's what
sure
we
that
do
it's
too. We actually connect our clients' domain names to Cloudflare. So when they're up
yeah,
for
same
when they're
thing.
up
We
for
do the
renewal,
same
we get notified, even though they might be on auto renew, Cloudflare can't tell that, but it knows the expiration date because it's public
yeah,
information. So it's just good to like have some kind of protocol for that. Because look, they're gonna point the finger at you at some point, right? And say, hey, my
yeah.
domain name expired, it's your fault.
Well, that's the first thing I always check is like I look. Well, first you can see right when you go to the site if the domain expired, it'll show like a parking page. You know
Oh
that
yeah.
it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
back.
Yeah, but you don't want to go through the hassle. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So growing and starting up, like all these tools that people have now, we didn't have
yeah.
any of them.
Yeah, I know
It
what you mean.
was
Yeah, yeah.
none of
So
them. And,
yep,
and, and
yep,
in Jupiter, Florida,
yeah.
I was literally, I think, one of the only web guys. Now there's, I don't know, there's a dime a
Yeah, no, you
dozen.
you were definitely a pioneer, man, for sure. Um,
Yeah.
tell me more like
We're
after,
local, like a local guy. I mean,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah. So after George Foreman, like you worked there for a while, and then what you went over
So,
to
well, the real estate market crashed. That certainly didn't help because a lot of my clients were in real estate, and so that slowed things down. I never gave up, though. I mean, I tell anybody that's doing freelance, if you were doing great, but you have to get a job. I ended up getting a divorce, so that I thought for the best thing for stability for my family was to get a full-time job, and that's how I went to Spectrum Brands and worked there, and that's how I met you and stuff. So I was very grateful to even though I feel like I took a step back. I learned so much in those
no, yeah, no, not necessarily.
7 years that I worked
It's good to dip into
for
the
companies.
enterprise. It's good to
Yeah.
go into the enterprise. You get to see like how a big organization works. It's really
Oh,
nice.
that's what I needed too, because I worked locally only. So if you started out always working locally, doing little local websites,
Yeah.
you're probably not going to evolve too much into enterprise level unless you
Yeah.
work for obviously
And
enterprise clients.
and the enterprise may sound like a dream client, but sometimes it's a lot more challenging to deal with enterprise customers, man. It's like
Oh yeah.
you got to bring departments in together. You got to get everybody on the same
So, so
page.
I'll tell you straight up, if you do enterprise, you need to get enterprise pay because I've worked for enterprise and not got what because I was a smaller company. They just didn't pay me what they would pay a larger company.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter. You still need the team. You
yeah,
still need the people. Without the people and the team, you're not going to be able to handle or take care of that client well. So if you don't got the money to handle them, and you think, oh, I got this enterprise client, and I got a pretty big budget for myself. Problem is that's going to go real quick the amount of time that you're going to spend on it. So like when I look at enterprise, you definitely need to have a project manager. You need to have, if it's a development, maybe two developers on the project,
sure.
maybe even a scrum master or scrum technical manager. Obviously, like you would have to oversee it. But I learned the hard way in a few enterprise clients I had where that kind of thinking I could take it on solo, I was like, no, I got to get people. So that's kind of that helped me, figure that part out. But like my favorite, I just like mid-sized businesses. Like they're the easiest.
Yeah,
You're totally correct. One that is not management by committee. I did something for Amadeus Travel enterprise client, and it was supposed to be a microsite, great microsite. We did a good job, no problems, no issue, But at the end of the day, on my side, I did the job 3 times because the approvals weren't going to the right person. So they would go to the person above, like it was like a manager, then a senior manager, then a director, and then a VP. And my stuff wasn't getting to the VP and that was the actual approver, right? So when you're
yeah,
doing enterprise, make sure you have the stakeholder, the one that's going to make sure that they sign off to get you your check. You need to make sure that's the person seeing your stuff and signing off and making sure that you have an approval process. And I learned the hard way there because I rebuilt it 3 times because
yeah. You learned that.
finally when it
Let me
went up
tell
to
you,
the
yeah, you learned that quick. You learned that
oh
very quick, and that goes for any size customer where
yeah yeah that was
you have to get approval from the final decision maker because ultimately what you present to them based on the people you worked with, they may not like. You don't know how they're communicating with this other person.
Oh, there was no communication. They literally saw it for the first time, and it happened to be not once in that process, but twice. And it was a hard time. I had a very hard time explaining it to him, like, hey, look, this is additional work now. Even in my
Yeah,
proposal stage,
you
which
don't want to
by the
get
way,
yourself, yeah, you don't want to get yourself
you
in that
learn real
pickle.
hard with the contract stuff because I used to be pretty loose in contracts because I was pretty confident in my ability to, do design and please somebody. But enterprise level, got to have a contract. You have to have a statement of work. You need to have, showing exactly what it is you're doing. And we talked about this in the past. You have to constantly monitor scope creep,
Yeah,
or kitchen sink syndrome, where
yeah,
you're
no doubt.
because they don't care. And
No,
getting approvals to spend more money is such a pain in the butt.
I
Like
shouldn't
they'll
say
try
it's
to
not. I don't think it's a question of not caring. It's just that they don't understand. So you have to make
that, but
them
also
understand.
like when you have a budget and you get that approved, asking for more money is a problem
Oh
all the
yeah,
way up to the
big time.
person. So like they don't
Always.
want to do that. They
Yeah,
want you to
yeah,
work for free,
yeah,
even though it's their fault. So you have to just it's a lot to it. Like enterprise is a lot. Where if you have,
yeah.
let's say,
And again,
let's say you have a
I wouldn't
massage.
necessarily say it's their fault because
No, no,
if you scope everything out right and you communicate properly, then scope creep doesn't happen. So,
well, now
and it's
it's
something,
9 10. It doesn't happen, but there's always that one person that will try to say, "But don't you know that I needed that?" And it's like, "No, I didn't. I actually thought of everything that I thought you needed, and I
yeah,
gave it to you in a statement of work which you approved."
that happens
That's what.
too. And it's funny too because, and I've dealt this several times. I've dealt with this several times over the last few months where, you know, when I sit down with a customer to go over discovery of a project or a task, I take screenshots and notes of everything, and then I review that with them. so they can
I
see what,
record the video. Yeah.
so they can,
Yeah.
so they can, because a lot of times they forget what they wanted. They're so busy. Oh, I wanted
Yeah.
this. I'm like, no, no, you didn't. Look, I have it here on my notes. This is what you, here's what you actually wanted. Oh, okay. You know?
I want to give a shout out to Russell. He does my it's mass, I think .co or yeah, he does my Airtable stuff, and he's so good at explaining everything that he's going to do. Russell Bishop, and it's hellomass.co, awesome Airtable consultant. But like he'll literally do a wireframe, show me everything, and then we go through stuff. He goes, tells me exactly what he's going to do. Then he goes and does the work. It's very straightforward. But yeah, that process, for me, like on my side, I love seeing that when I'm hiring somebody. I'm like, oh, this is a dream, like
Yeah.
they're showing me everything. There's nothing
Right. But yeah,
that's
you learn from it.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, that's where I think we talked about that when we did some of our first podcasts was ensuring that we have everything outlined and making sure that it's all like together. And that's where like again, like a smaller project, I think is more profitable than an enterprise client. Like at the end of the day, you might make a lot of money with an enterprise client, but you could do like 10 small projects and make more money than that
And
one big one
sometimes,
that you work.
sometimes, a lot of times I'll pick one over the other. You know, because
Yeah.
it gives you a sense of accomplishment, like you're getting things done. When you work on these large projects, sometimes
Oh,
they drag on for so long that you're just like,
you
oh my
do
God.
more, I think, than
You know,
I
even
do.
though you have milestones in place because the project isn't completed, you just feel
Yeah.
like it's never gonna end, you know?
I think you've taken on a lot bigger projects than me. Like longer span projects, the ones you told me about, like 6 months or so. Um, we talked about B2B customers versus
Yeah.
B2C and having wholesale customers. I love wholesale websites. Those are so easy to do. And the client's just happy. They just need it, like I said, functional. So like that's fun to do. But yeah, like in the process, learning, I was like, oh, I need big clients. And then I figured out I was like, I don't need big clients. I just need good clients,
Yeah.
ones that appreciate my work, ones that are happy. I mean, I can't tell you how many disgruntled clients I've had that just made me utterly miserable.
It
And it
happens.
takes a
Yeah.
lot too to learn as well. Like you learn to let go, I think, as you mature in business, let go of you know, or at least me, I think you're able with your emotion. I think the whole, like some of the stuff I'd actually create, I'd be like, and then someone shits on it. It's like, damn, it just ruins your day. Now I have a creative director that does it. So I don't like the creative process. I feel like we got down pretty well. But I also been able to disconnect myself from that because when you're doing everything yourself, you have a lot more emotion to that versus turning it more into like a machine that's generating work, right?
Yeah.
So you learn you
Yeah.
learn to
You're not as emotionally attached to the assets.
yeah, where I'm like, because I did a lot of it myself, I was emotionally attached to it. So when someone would just shit on me or shit on it, I get angry. But I definitely, yeah, like now when you have that support from a team, that's what I really needed. It was a great team, and it took me a long time to build that.
Yeah.
Finding good help is hard. Finding
It's
talent
for
even
every
harder.
industry. You know, I always say this, you know, that's why there are businesses in place to find people or recruit
Yeah.
people. Like that's how much of a challenge it is that there's actually a business model around it. You know,
Yeah,
recruiting agencies.
I've tried a few. I mean, you know all the freelance ones like Upwork. I also brunt work. I tried, and they place people for you. And I think that I haven't actually gotten placed anybody yet. But the best place I find people, I find talent, is actually myself looking and putting it in LinkedIn job
Oh, I
postings.
say. I haven't really done the LinkedIn thing. I've done a lot of Upwork, and
It's
I've had some
it's
great people on
still
Upwork. Our office manager, who actually lives on the other coast, she's been with us
yeah.
for about 12 years, and she came over from Upwork.
Yeah, Upwork. Yeah, so Upwork has a policy after 2 years, I think it is. After 2 years of paying someone on Upwork, you're legally allowed to bring them over onto your team.
Oh, I never knew
So
that.
let's say you hired someone a year ago
Yeah.
and you didn't start working them again for another year. Well, that's almost 2 years. You could actually switch them over. So that's one good thing about Upwork. I think that you're allowed to do is be able to bring them over to your own, team if you want
Yeah,
to do
yeah.
that
Yeah, no, no.
illegally.
I found I found so much good talent in Upwork that a lot of the work that we've done, we've never been able to do without that talent.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
same,
'Cause
same here.
it's just so diversified, you know. If you need an illustrator, a front-end developer, back-end developer, a .NET developer, like any stack out there, you know, it's
Now, now I will say that I've gone through a lot. Like I've gone through
oh,
a
so have
lot.
I. I keep,
I mean,
you know,
like
out of like 20 I go through, I keep one. Yeah.
literally, I can say in the last, it's been what, 13, 15, wait, 14 years that
Yeah.
I started Bright Vessel, this company, and I would say that I probably went through at least 100 people to find my team, and some of it was grueling work, because
Yeah.
finding people is a talent in
It
of
really is.
itself.
And then it's finding them, it's training them,
Yeah.
right? That you gotta because okay, it's one thing if you bring in a developer or a designer, great, they can actually do the skill set. But then you have to get them integrated into your company in terms of
So
policies, procedures, and flows.
SOPs, baby. I don't know. I have literally probably I don't know, at least 50 SOP docs I've written for my own company. And I would say that no one's ever followed them 100%. Like it's still, we're still working on that. Like
Yeah.
I still like, I look back and it's like night and day from 5 years ago, but every year, you learn about processes and what works and what doesn't. Sometimes that outstanding, perfectly drafted SOP you created is not going to work for the amount of shit you got to get done and the time that you got to get it done. So sometimes I cut corners, but Airtable is where. So let's talk about systems real quick. I work with FreeCamp as my portal, like my project portal. I work with
Wait, let me stop you. Let me stop you over there because I'm not familiar with FreeCam. What does that give you in terms of an online portal?
FreeCamp. If I had to explain what it's like, it's I'm trying to remember the one old project tracking trike, or was it there was so FreeCamp has it has tickets, but not the tickets you think about. It has like issues, it's called, but it also has projects, and then you could view projects as Gantt charts. You can view them as Kanban boards. So
Yeah,
it's really just a project
that's pretty
management tool.
turnkey. That's like a pretty, no, I shouldn't say turnkey.
Yeah, it's kind of
That's like
like base camp with Trello and a few different, but it's a pro. So you need a project
what I'm
track.
saying is that all the task management software out there today pretty much has that built in already.
Yeah, so that's the one that we fell into. I like it has an
Yeah,
API, so I can do things with it.
yeah, yeah.
Monday is another one that we use, and then Jira was the original one that we used, which Jira was just
Boy,
way too
you
complicated
use
for a
all
client.
three?
So right now I have some clients that some larger clients that I have to work in Jira. That's their system, so my team
Oh, I
works
see
in
what you're
their
saying.
system.
That's because they want you in there.
Yeah,
I see.
Monday is another one that I
I
have a
see.
large client that does that.
Yeah.
My wife is printing something out right now. Thanks, honey.
Yeah, obviously Asana is a big one too. I gotta tell you though, we don't really because it's funny, a lot of times small customers will have these task management software and they want us to be part of them. And we have to tell them up front, say, hey, look, we have our own that we use and manage. We know how to use it, we know how to manage it.
Well,
We can't go on somebody else's for multiple reasons. Number one is we don't know how to work it. We don't know how you work it, right? Because there's, even though you're setting up tasks and projects and it's all pretty much done the same way, there are different ways to go about it.
so I'll explain why I did that because I was the same like you for a long time. But the reason I did it like
Yeah,
that
but
is
wait, though,
one,
wait. Let me just finish my whole paragraph
sure,
here.
good.
So if you are an enterprise class customer, then we will do that. So for enterprise class customers, we do that. For small businesses, it's just you're just all over the place if not. You know what I mean? Because somebody
Yeah.
might have Monday. So now you get a notification from Monday that it's been assigned to you. So that means you got to have a user on Monday. And I have 10 users in my company that require access to tasks.
So here's what I just want to add to about clients and project tracking. None of them fucking log into the project tracking
And
system.
that's what we found out too. Because initially, I remember
No.
10 years ago, we used to use Rike. We we started with Basecamp, and then we outgrew Basecamp. We moved over to
Right.
Bright,
Yeah.
and then we were letting people in. But guess what? Nobody's got time to learn a new tool,
And
dude.
they hate getting the emails. They don't care about your
Right,
stuff.
right.
What
So
they want and what we provide is just a weekly roundup email of what was done. And that's all they need to see. And they're
I see what
happy
you're
with
saying.
that.
With our large customers, what we do is we have weekly or biweekly one-on-ones. We actually open up our task management software, which is teamwork, right? And we go over their review or complete items with them. Yeah, so we basically found out that most customers don't like to actually log into a system and learn any system and assign things and get emails. So what we do is we meet with customers either weekly or bi-weekly, and obviously these are the larger customers, right? That have a
Yeah.
lot going on in the pipeline. And we'll just go through our task management software. We'll actually show them. We'll show them everything, the hours, the tasks, what's set to review, what's on backlog, what's active, and so on.
Yeah. Um, so that's where we just do the weekly roll up in an email. We try to avoid, I feel like the weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings, unless it's like an ongoing client. But if it's a
Yeah,
project,
yeah. If it's
we try to
ongoing,
give as
fine. Yeah,
much
yeah.
great information as we
Yeah.
can, by email, showing things from the beta link to having the
It really depends. It depends on the
uh,
customer. It really does.
yeah, but using the system. So yeah, so we use FreeCam for ours. We use Monday for and as well as Jira. And
Yeah.
then for the plugin side of things, for the plugin business that we have, we use Vivify, which is an agile development kind of. It's really actually a great little app, to manage sprints. So Vivify, if you haven't heard of that, it's a fun one to do. But
Why can't you do that on FreeCamp to manage sprints?
it's not sprint based. It like literally it's like this one's made for developers. Like, it's kind of like a Jira, but not as sophisticated. It's just more simplified, but
Yeah.
it's directly made for having software features and then, and then having sprints for each one of those features. It really just focuses on that kind of workflow versus a project. So it was just easier for that team to manage things. And it's funny because I have a great manager, Kleinman, on that team that manages that whole system. Um, and they rarely need me to look at things or do like they're just pumping through. I say the features that are needed, what we need to do. They go through the system, it's done. Where the project tracking side of things and managing clients, that needs definitely a little bit more finesse and a manual kind of labor, like ensuring the status on the particular task is updated appropriately. Is it in ticket creation still, even though that it's done, or it should be in QA? I mean, like you really need a good project manager that's going to like look at every single ticket that's in the system every single day that they're responsible for, and ensuring that the statuses are always updated.
Yeah. That's what, it's good to pair up a project manager with a specific project, not just have a project manager, manage
Yeah.
whoever comes in and writes in a ticket or needs something. I usually try to pair up the same team of people with the same customer.
Yeah, and that's where you have to have a good workflow within the project tracking system itself. So when you create a ticket, there's always the same process in creating that exact ticket, making sure that it has a title description, and it has to be, it can't be the Wild West where everyone's just going to create whatever kind of task they want to and say what they
Yeah,
want.
it's crazy. I've seen that happen too. Everybody just kind of
Oh
does
yeah,
things their own way, and
yeah, because if anybody asks to ask like, and I've done it so many times now, and I've looked at like probably looked at a million tickets in my lifetime. Like I'll look at it and be like, okay, someone's going to ask a question. Like the developer doesn't have everything they need. They're going to be like, I need this or I need this. So it's really that project manager in a web space or app space or development space needs to understand stuff technically to be able to manage it. Otherwise, they're still not going to write out the ticket properly, and there's going to be a lot of back and forth between the developer and that person just to get the ticket right. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
right, yeah,
So yeah, so that's starting out. I was originally on Basecamp, like that was
yeah.
one of
Well,
my first
you know,
ones.
those guys were like the pioneers of task
They
management.
were, and it's funny how you think about all the stuff that we started with that they just didn't stay ahead of the curve.
You want to hear something funny? I just got an email from them last week that my account was being shut off from not using it. And it's been like 10 years since I've had like a free account.
I probably have the same. You know what? I need
You
to
got the same email
text
as well
it.
too, right? Yeah. And you know, John, I wouldn't say they didn't pioneer. It's just that the one thing Basecamp had an advantage over all these other task management systems is the simplicity.
Oh my God! I still have my login.
Oh,
Basecamp too.
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
it's the simplicity of it. It was very, very simple, but yet it didn't do a lot. Like, you know, it doesn't time track.
yeah.
You
It
can't
was
really
it
do
was
reports.
simple. Oh my gosh! I have so. That's funny. I'm looking at so many old things. That's crazy too. Like, yeah, when yeah, I don't like to me, I just logged in Basecamp 2. This two's been around for 10 years. They should have like five out by now,
Oh
right?
my
But
gosh, yeah, yeah.
they probably just don't care. That's where I think Jira really stepped ahead of everybody. Like they sold that for so much money.
Oh,
They
that's
made
right. They sold a few years ago, right?
yeah, they made a
Who was it? What is it? Atlison? Is that the company that owns it, or did they sell
yeah,
to that company?
yeah, they it was just a group of guys that built. It was kind of like Slack even like it was just a group of guys that built something
Yeah.
that everyone just gravitated to.
Yeah, here, let's ask Grok. Hey, Grok, I'm with Judd on our weekly podcast, and we're talking about Jira, the task management software. We think it was bought out a few years ago. Can you tell us or expand on that?
$26 billion, 2019.
Oh, Jesus.
I was fast in your dumb AI.
It says connecting. Don't you just love technology?
I have to give it to Google. Google did
And,
that one
and,
for
and by the
me.
way,
I
you were
barely used
not
to.
you can't say my dumb AI. You're also using AI to fetch that answer.
Oh, I do. I do. And so, do you cuss at your AI? Is it just
No,
me?
no.
I cuss at it all the time. I'm
Yeah,
like, it
yeah.
just makes me angry sometimes because I have to
Look,
explain.
I'll tell you what makes me angry sometimes. It's Alexa.
Yeah, definitely
Alexa
cuss at
hasn't
her
quite evolved
too.
yet, but I think now the new version of Alexa is going to be LLM based. So that's going to change
Okay.
everything, you know, which is what Siri needs, right? But I think Apple pushed out the Siri update for about another year till they.
I just, I, sometimes sometimes I feel like it knows what I want, but it's being an asshole.
Oh, okay. Yes, I
I'm
don't know.
kind of wondering if it's like I don't like this guy. I'm
It,
gonna mess with him right
the
now.
one thing, you know, I talk to Grok the most, and the one thing I always tell Grok is to stop complimenting so much or stop being so nice and just give me the answer. Because it'll be like, oh, Carlos, that's such a great question. Let me tell you a little bit about it. I'm like, hey, can you be more precise and more short on your answers?
Yeah. So I with ChatGPT, I made it be more humorous and it's kind of a smart ass. And it also I make it call me Master Supreme.
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, I remember seeing that. That's you got some ego issues there, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, oh God, I hope my stuff's private.
So what you're saying is when you get a robot from Tesla, which is going to come out like any year now, you know
Yeah, oh,
that, right? You know these home robots are going to be out here in the next few years.
yeah, man. I'm definitely seeing T Terminator movie about real life come out
No,
sooner or
don't
later.
more
It's yeah.
Terminator,
I
Matrix, whatever which one you want to call it.
I mean, if you make an AI like a human, you're doomed for trouble because humans are by design very bad people.
We're good and bad inside, yeah. Um,
Well,
but you know,
I
as
would
far
say I would say that if you look, you could take the best person in the world, right, and then go look at their social media profile.
right, yeah.
I mean, everyone has their inner kind of badness. I think AI would just be like, I don't have any innards, so I'm just going to be bad.
All right, so listen, we kind of got a little bit off
way
topic
off
here,
track.
as usual. We were talking about you starting your agency, then working in the corporate world, and then you started Bright Vessel, right?
Right, Vessel. Yeah. So that's when I really took everything that I learned the hard way, in so many different ways, and then started learning more things the hard way. But that's when I was like, all right, I'm gonna just, it's like, ride or die. I'm gonna make this work. I'm gonna continue and continue and continue and not stop, not quit, not go get a job, and make it work. I did. And I would say, like, if you do start an agency, God bless you. You're gonna, Carlos, you've probably had some, we probably share some battle scars, but you have to learn how to,
Oh yeah,
you have to
yeah.
have,
These
grow
are
thick skin,
yeah,
and
for
that's one of the
sure.
hardest things for me is because, yeah, definitely, it was hard for, because sometimes you had to take a job because you needed the money, but that job was horrible. It's worse than having a normal job that with a bad boss, instead it's a bad client that you got to deal with, so I've had my fair share of that. I think the one thing that I really, strive to do was not be a local vendor anymore. Branch out to work with people all over the world, not just
Yeah,
in the United States. I started looking at, you know, if you think local, then you think national. If you think national, then you think international. You just keep growing and growing to where you set a wider net, and that's what I did. And being a part of the WooCommerce program partnership really helped with that, focusing and being really good at a particular platform, which is WordPress itself, really helped. And then yeah, and then getting the clients and moving upwards. So
yeah. It's very difficult to start an agency as a solopreneur these days because everything has gotten so complex. Social media management alone.
compensation has got so tough too.
So it's, you're gonna need
Lord.
to rely on other people unless you're like this mastermind that just, can,
Yeah,
can manage all these different avenues, of design, development, uh, hosting or server infrastructure, social media, SEO. It's just gotten
server
way
side
out of hand.
tracking. That's a winner.
That on its own, that requires a
Yeah,
master's degree these days. Uh,
yeah,
so it's definitely hard. I see it's funny because I don't know if you get this, but on the WooCommerce side, from time to time, we'll have agencies reach out to us. And a lot of them are
yeah.
just
Me too.
you get the same, right? A lot of them are creatives, right? So they build something, they put it up on WordPress, the customer wants e-commerce, and then they want more stuff. And then they're like, oh my gosh, we can't do this. We need somebody else to do this for us. We don't know what we're doing here.
Yeah. So that I think you wear two hats. I wear two hats. I wear marketing as well as dev, and um, I definitely. At one point I was more marketing than I was dev, and then I went really more into dev because I really enjoy that more than marketing. And I'll tell you the reason why is I'm trying to limit my F bombs, but F Google, F Facebook, those ad platforms that have no transparency, no accountability, you're helping them grow, and then they would change something, and I've said this before, and all of a sudden all your clients' stuff goes to shit because of changes they did, but you get blamed for them. So I really stopped doing marketing. I know a great deal about it, but I don't like doing Google Ads, for example. And like certain people don't realize that if you're an AC company, you don't do standard ads, you do local service ads. That's all you need to do. So there's certain types of things that you can do to be successful, but I just felt like marketing, you're working so hard to grow other people's businesses, where if you're doing web development, web management, building plugins, you're building your business. So I think marketing is tough because it's kind of like still being in the service industry. It's like being an interior designer and going from one house to another, where I still think web development has a great avenue to go from building a website to then help managing it or do SEO or do some of the technical things, but you don't have to dive into Facebook marketing. that still can be done by an agency because usually agencies that do Facebook marketing are really tight niche with Facebook marketing. They don't do web development. So I think nowadays it's really gone back to you have a good web company, then you have really a special niche agency that does Facebook, not, they don't do Facebook and Google. And I think bigger firms, they just overcharge money to do um, multiple channels. Where if I had to go find a marketer to do a certain channel, I would find the expert in that channel versus someone that says, "Oh, I do all channels." Not really. I don't. It's very hard, I think, now because of the complexity of each channel to have someone that's very special niche and all one size fits all. So that's kind of how I look at it. And I didn't want to become that. I was very good at Google Ads, but I was like, I don't want to be very good at Facebook. I learned TikTok, but I was like, I don't want to do TikTok either.
No, it's
So
hard.
that's why I
It's hard to
stuck with
say.
web and web management. I think is probably the best thing you can do as a web developer is offer web management plans because that really is the way to solidify your business
Yeah,
and
and you need to,
having
yeah, you
visual
need to do
income.
that. You need to do that to stay afloat. It brings in recurring
Yeah,
revenue, and it's how you sell it to the customer too. It's hey, look, you're gonna get priority support. You're gonna get maintenance updates. It's it's really needed to continue the voyage.
and we partner with a lot of good marketing companies, and we're happy to do that. They don't have a web team, and they don't want one, and we're happy to work with them and just provide the web stuff, and it makes stuff that we love doing. So
Sure, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and then as far as I love like building software too is a fun one, like plugins and stuff. We That took a long time. So we started in 2019, Bright Plugins, and I can't believe it's already 6 years later, but we have 18 now plugins that we have built. And we built 90% of them in the last year and a half. So it took a while to grow that into something viable. But I love that part of things. I love working within the platform of WordPress, and building, tools and stuff. And with AI, that made it a lot easier too. So that's kind of scary if you think about it too, like what AI is doing in that space, because now anybody can go and throw a plugin up, build a plugin. The only thing that's the barrier there that's a pain in the ass is getting onto WordPress.org, which is a very rigorous kind of process to get a plugin approved. So we fortunate that we've been through that. We have a few plugins approved, but it takes usually a month, sometimes 6 months, to get a free plugin approved on WordPress.org. So, like, if you're building a plugin, just know like you might not get the freemium, advantages of WordPress.org. It might take you an actual year, 2 years to see the advantages of that because you first have to get it up. Then once you get it up, you have to make, people have to download it to want it, and that takes time. And by the time you actually get enough downloads where you're getting pro upgrades, it took a long time, but I was happy to climb that mountain and figure it out. So that's been a fun journey too. Well, so tell us about your side as far as some of the tracking tools. You got Teams, you told me. What else do you do from a project management standpoint?
Yeah, it's actually teamwork is what,
Teamwork, sorry.
and it's task management software with agencies in mind. So it does budgeting really nicely, the reporting really nicely. Um,
It's funny. I always thought Teams was actually teamwork was actually Microsoft Teams. I forgot
no,
that. You're right. Teamwork was who was that built by?
it's some company out of Ireland.
Yeah. You've been on that for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah. It's hard, man.
Teamworks.
It's hard to it's teamwork, not teamworks.
Oh,
But
there's also a Teamworks.
I'm sure
Good
there's everything out there these days. But it's hard, man. Once you like getting off right when we were on right for so long. Just getting off right took us months, man. And
I so
granted they had the export import feature, just it didn't work.
I absolutely love Airtable, and it's $20 a user for a base. And it can be quite expensive, But if you look at some teamworks and teams and all these things, you still have to pay by user too, so it's almost the same price. With Airtable, you have to like basically build from the ground up. So you build everything. It's a relational database, so you
Yeah.
create everything.
Yeah.
But I tell you, like I have my bank accounts, Stripe accounts, CRM now. I have from all of my project tracking systems, all their time being fed into Airtable. So I have time tracking. I was able to send my team members their time report. So if they're not entering their time, but it'll give them a report saying you need to enter your time for the
Oh,
day.
that's nice. Yeah.
At the end of the week, it will send them a follow-up of their weekly time. And at
Oh,
the end of the
nice.
month, when they have to do billing and things like that for me, if it's like a freelancer, it will tell them the time that they worked. And that should be what it is, right? There's sometimes I'll be like, oh, I forgot to
Yeah.
enter some time, but it helps me keep them accountable because I've had, when you have people enter like all of a sudden, oh, I worked 100 hours, like you can't just enter that
No,
in the
you can't do
31st. I
that.
mean,
No, I mean for multiple reasons. One of them being, you need to proactively monitor the project or the task to make sure it's on budget. You can't just have
oh, so
somebody enter. You can't somebody enter time at the end of the month or at the end of the week, you know?
Oh yeah, so I've been taken advantage of many times by people like because of this. So I really was like the last 2 years saying I'm gonna figure this out. I need to track things more appropriately, particularly because if you start getting a lot more people,
Yeah.
you have your budget gets big and you're like
Yeah.
I gotta make sure people are accountable. But I've had people I've caught use my tools like Lambda test
Oh yeah, yeah.
from
I've
Upwork.
done
I
that
hired a
too.
guy
Yeah.
from Upwork and he was using all my tools
Yeah.
and then he was billing me during the time he was using my tools. And he refunded me the entire month because he's like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, what you did is pretty bad, right? You're basically stealing, it's unethical, da da. And I didn't rat him out in Upwork or whatever. He just refunded me. But it just goes to show you, man, like trust is earned, and I think that the time thing really helps because it really shows what someone's doing and also, allow you to help your team. Like if they're taking too long or maybe they're struggling on something, you can jump in and tell them, especially if you know how to do it better and you're supposed to be one training people, right? Or
Yeah.
passing the knowledge
Yeah. Listen,
down.
dude, if somebody scamming you, sooner or later you find out, dude. That's
Yeah, I've had it happen where I even give second chances, third chances,
yeah.
30-day reviews. Like I started acting like a real HR company. I don't have an HR department. I'm not, not like a big, that big like that, right? So I am the happiness officer, which is kind of crazy because, I wasn't, A-type personality, driver, was not a kind of guy you want in HR, but I really try to have empathy for people and understanding where they're coming from because um, that's hard because when you're at the top, no one has empathy for you, but you have to definitely have empathy for everybody below because no one understands your position. But it's your job to understand everyone below's position and what's going on. And if you don't, you might not realize why something's falling behind. They might have a personal problem you didn't realize, and just by acknowledging that with that person, it boosts them up, their spirit up. It really, says, okay, I need to get back to my job, but and you can also help them in certain cases. So I'm learning that. That's always a tough one to learn. I think when you start to grow and have to manage a lot of people, is that empathy and that maturity level. And I'm not ashamed to say it. It took me several years to maybe like six to get better at being a manager just
Yeah,
by managing my own people.
it's hard. You get better as you get older though. Like
Yeah,
when I was younger, I was more of a hothead with people. And then
you were actually when I was at my peak hothead, you were way more professional than me.
I don't
If
know.
you remember when I had server issues with George Furman, I'd call you up, what the fuck? And I would lose. You're like, Juddy, just calm down, calm down. We're gonna fix this. We're gonna fix this. You always kept me in a good,
Yeah,
even when I was angry, because I
you
was a
know,
client back then. You kept me in a good space.
where I learn a lot from in that sense, and managing customers is large corporations. They always give you the
Yeah,
same spiel when you talk to them. It's always the same spiel. I understand what you're saying. I'm here to help you.
yeah, you
Right.
do a good job at that. I
And
have to
that's
admit.
that's what people want to hear. Hey, I'm gonna do my best to help you out here and get you
Yeah.
sorted out. Everything that's
And And that really helped me having project managers as an owner be a buffer in between me and the customer. And I think one thing when you're building an agency,
Yeah.
your sole focus from the start should be building your brand, because you don't want everyone just being like, I only know Judd Dunnigan. I want them to know Bright Vessel. And I think that's where I changed over the last 6 years or so. Now, when people they hire Bright Vessel. They don't really, yeah, they see me and they see who I am, but they don't always need to talk to me. They actually, and sometimes would prefer to talk to the people that they started with, like,
No
my
doubt.
director of web
Yeah.
management or, Romina or Thomas on my side. So that took a long time. That's definitely something I highly recommend. So your thought is I need to always speak to people and be the one? No, you're never going to get past a certain point. You have to hand that over to others, and you have to look at your brand as being the actual what people want to remember, not who you are, because you'll always be stuck then as just that guy. And you know what I mean? Not referring Brett Vessel, but referring Judd Dunnigan. So that was something I changed, I think, and it really helped be a bigger company.
Yeah. Tell me about like saying no. Do you ever say no to customers?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. So there's a point where I couldn't say no. I needed the money. But now, absolutely. Like if we've given, we will give back an entire deposit if something goes wrong. Like if we feel the client just wasn't their initial conversation, things aren't really going where they need to be, and we feel that it's too difficult, or the client's just difficult. We're more than happy to provide everything that we even built or did, and the deposit back to move on, because it's very important, I think. And I'll tell you why. I've lost team members on my team that I did not want to lose because of clients.
Oh, that's happened to me too. Yeah.
And and I'll tell you what, when you have a good team member, they're so much more important than a client. A
Yeah.
good talent and a good yeah, it's just I learned that the hard way a few times, and it's sad. But like, unfortunately, and that's that it goes into one other thing. If you have sorry, if you have
Good. Give me
if
one
you
second.
have too
Good.
many
Good. Good. I gotta pee. Give me one second.
yeah. So big whale clients, that is, one of the other parts that to that you want to think about, because when you have a big whale client, and let's say you have staff, but the staff's not driving with the whale client, and you're not driving with it, or you do, but you do need the money, right, to pay everybody. That is not a great position to be in. That is where you can get stuck and be in that position for a long time, particularly if that one client's taking up all of your time. So, I've gotten to having very large clients where it took 90% of my team, but I wasn't getting paid enough to grow either the business and or the team, and it put me in a stagnant kind of situation for a while. So what I that you got to diversify your portfolio. You can't just have a couple of large clients that's going to take up all your work. You have to have a lot of small clients,
Yeah.
medium-sized clients. You have to have a mixture.
You do. Yeah. Yeah,
That
you do. Because you lose one of those big clients for whatever reason, and it could be game over.
well, every time that I've lost a big client, it was actually a better thing for me. It allowed me to be in perspective and move forward into something better. So it was a learning phase. And then the larger clients that I had similar situations with, I was able to work out with them a better retainer, a better agreement, and I was able to work those out. But like you got to be able to work that kind of situation. It's hard, it's hard going to a client and telling them like this is not working anymore. I've been doing this forever. I need more people. I'm strained. I'm not growing, and I feel like basically the conversation. I just feel like I'm a freelancer for you when I
Yeah.
actually have a business that I'm
Why?
running. So
Why not ask them for more money though?
how you just
No,
you
no.
just
Why
ask.
not just say, "Hey, I need more money, or we gotta go." Like,
It's
Why get
well, I mean,
what I'm saying is
like,
why give them the whole spiel instead of saying like, hey, listen, my rates are gonna go
yeah.
up in the next month to XYZ. Here's why. If you want to continue doing, this work. If not, we're
Well,
gonna have to cut
I'm talking
ties.
like when you have some that were like 12 years and you have a good you have a friendly relationship with, it's a little bit tougher,
Oh,
because
okay. Yeah,
it's
I guess I don't
yeah.
really. Yeah,
But your way is probably the best way. Like that is
yeah.
the like you need to have the poker
I mean,
face.
listen, friendships and all. I mean, everybody understands, bro. Business is business.
Yeah. Well, I definitely worked my fair share. So I made some changes there to help, with us, and that helped. But what I had to do though is like, I had to make sure I had the residual built up enough to where that would, like, if it were to go away, I'd be okay. And that's what I did do. I didn't take the risk where because that's the other stress is like I don't want to lose the client and then have to let go of, most of my team. So it's like a cat. Like once you start having team, people you start to worry about all this people and all their families, right? So when you're up to like 20 people, it's like everybody has families. I have, team
Yeah,
members that have children, and man, that weighs on you.
it does.
Like I
Yeah,
can't tell you how many sleepless nights I've had
yeah.
where I was
It
like, I
feels
need
good
to
too,
address.
though. It also feels good because you're feeding people. You're feeding families.
Yeah, it feels good. But also like it's difficult too, where if something's not working out with one of those persons, I like really start to. I can't tell you how many things I looked up from an HR perspective on how to handle anything from a 90-day kind of review to ensuring that I'm speaking respectfully about a certain topic, or like if their performance was bad, how can I, you know, put them on a path that's a good path forward to get better. And that helped a lot because you give usually like three different chances, three different ways to be successful on that path, and you work with them to do that. And if they still can't be successful, then you can sleep at night. Like I did everything I could to make sure that person could work well. I gave them the tools they needed, but they still couldn't perform and do the job. It didn't work out, and then you move on. So that's tough. I think like Gary Vee said, hire and fire fast. Um, I believe that in some cases, but it's true. Like if you have somebody you hired and it doesn't work out, you
It's
can't
not.
be
That's
stuck.
not. That's not the same.
Is it hire and fire fast, isn't it?
No, it's higher fat. I'm sorry. Higher slow, fire fast.
I think it's hire and fire fast. 1 second.
Yeah, here, ask Rock. Let me see if I can connect this time.
I think you need to tell Brock, like, if you don't like be mean to it this time, it might be nice to you and send you what you know. I'm joking.
It's down. It can't connect.
Hire slow. Well, Harvard Business Review is hire slow, fire fast, but there's also hire fast, fire fast approach to staffing too, which prioritizes speed on in both hiring and terminating decisions. Anyway, we don't have to go with that. Like that.
It
That's
goes
just
against, doing both fast kind of goes against both. Because
well, so
you
what I've
hire
done to find
you hire
talent.
fast, you may hire the wrong person. That's why you want to hire slow. Make sure you're going to hire the right person.
So here's what I've done this in the past too. When it came to project-based work and
Yeah.
trying to find a talent that I wanted to bring on full time, I've hired three people for the same job, same project. So like if I need a website design created, I would hire three people to design that website, have free comps, and then I'd even go through and use them for different things, just figure out which one was best, and then I'd hire that person.
Oh, yeah, that's smart. Yeah.
Yeah, what it did for me is it provided different comps to the customer, um, and it also allowed me to hire somebody where I felt good because I was able to work with all three and make the right decision. Where it's tough, like if you're in a typical HR department with a Fortune 100 company, let's say, you have a very rigid process to hire somebody and a very long process to fire them. I don't know if you've worked with inside companies where you had to like I've had to let somebody go inside a company, and that was a pain in the ass. Holy cow. I had to like get it was like trying to prepare for getting reimbursed from your medical insurance. Like I had to prepare all this stuff, and it was just a nightmare. But
Wow.
so I think in our industry it's a little bit different because we can have pull talent from all over the place.
Yeah.
And and it makes it a lot easier. Like my heart goes out to people that have to, deal with, because sometimes you get stuck with who you hire. So it's such a long process. It's like a 90-day process, usually, maybe even 6 months. I know some companies I work with trying to find people, and they've been looking for someone for a year, and they haven't found the right person yet.
Wow.
So that it's hard to find, I think, good people. So that's where, I typically in our industry, because it's design, because it's web development, we can actually, hire on project basis and then bring them on full time afterwards.
Yeah, in terms of saying no, which was kind of the original question here,
Oh,
I tend to say when I initially engage a client, I am automatically in no mode. Like they have,
automatic.
yeah, they have to meet certain criteria for me to say, okay, yes, we're going to engage you. We're going to be able to help you.
That's a good, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I had a guy like 2 months ago call. He was a local guy. He found us through Google Business. He's like, hey, I've developed this and I've taken it as far as I can take it. I need you to finish the development. Um,
Mm-mm.
and it's,
That's already a no. That's already a fucking no.
he's like, you want to hear the kicker? It was like, I only work after 5 p.m.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like,
I'd be
listen,
like, I would be like, I don't.
I'm like, we're not for you. I'm sorry. I'm like, go, go on Upwork, hire
Yeah,
a
I've said that.
freelancer. What you want is a freelancer, not an agency at this point.
I think a lot of times people don't even realize what they like. They just don't get it. What really sucks is when you have a client or a prospect come
Yeah,
and they haven't even done the due diligence to understand what they need or what things cost, and then you're just fucking there to explain.
yeah,
Just
that happens too.
like
Yeah,
tell, like
I'm
you have
the
to tell
opposite.
them like this is like I'm doing this out of the kindness of my heart versus just telling you we're not the people and hanging up. Like you need to go and put a business plan together, and you need to go research, and and nowadays what's crazy is like with AI, like people like we use it a lot, but I'll give you a perfect example. So I had to hire, or I was going to hire a lawyer, right? And it was to review a contract. But I used AI to review the contract, and I sent the lawyer all the stuff that I thought would need to be edited based off of what AI
Yeah.
told me. And he's like, "This is better than my paralegal would have done for me.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think you really need me. This kind of hits it right on the head." And I'm like,
That's great.
I was
You
like,
you know
"Well, do
what
I
though?
got?"
You did the right thing because you could have gotten hallucinations. So who's gonna check that?
Well, yeah. Well, so I wanted, yeah, because AI is kind of dumb. But in AI, like if you're
I
doing
mean,
anything
Judge,
legal.
you can't say it's dumb. It just hasn't
Well,
matured.
so no, but like literally, it makes assumptions sometimes, and I'm like, but wait a minute, that doesn't make sense.
Judge,
Oh, you're
it
right,
doesn't
and then
make
it writes,
assumptions. It doesn't assume things.
oh,
It
I'm
ge
gonna,
it generates it ge- Judge, it generates content or context based on what's already out there.
just
It
so
cannot
from
assume.
a
It doesn't do critical
from
thinking.
all right, so I'm gonna I'll find a chat where I'll send you the whole chat, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Sometimes what it does, and this it doesn't all it doesn't. I'll say don't say anything. I still need to provide you additional information, but if I provide you too much, you won't listen. You know what I mean? So I provide. It will still spit out all this stuff and start giving me things. I'm like, no, stop. I still got to upload 5 other documents for you to review. I'm sorry, like, but let's go back to the AI thing about like with
No, no,
legal.
no. I think you're right. I'm wrong. Yeah, it doesn't.
No, it's fucking stupid. Like,
No, no, no.
I'm
It is.
sorry.
There are times where it assumes because I've asked it to
You
like give me an answer on something that I was looking for.
you know what
It
AI
just sort of gives
is?
you a best guess.
AI is like talking to a genius child that's like 4, that is super smart,
Right.
Einstein level,
Today.
but still a
That's
child.
yeah, but
Like
that's
it's
today. AI today.
oh yeah, which is scary because
Yeah.
like like if it's yeah, we don't have I didn't want to think about where it could go, but anyway, like the lawyer didn't realize that I was using AI, and
Oh,
which made me think like you're probably not even using AI for your own stuff.
yeah, yeah.
And that's crazy because like honestly, like I every contract now I upload the contract to AI, and it tells me everything I should be concerned about, what I should ask, and it makes enough sense. And I'll even say, I'm stupid, AI, check, say I'm stupid about this. Please explain it like, in layman's terms, and then
Yeah.
it would actually dummy it down even for me. So
Oh, Joe, listen to
anyway,
this. This is all over the news now, where either lawyers are being sanctioned or disbarred for using AI.
oh yeah. So there was a guy representing himself, and he wanted AI to speak on his behalf. And the judge is like, no, 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 well, you can't do that. And he's like, well, why not? Because I've already looked at the stuff, and it's hard for me to speak in public, so I'm just gonna
Yeah.
have AI speak it for me. And the judge threw it right out. She's like, no, it can't dictate anything for you. You have to say it yourself.
Yeah, I guess we're not ready for that yet. Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, that's where it's going. I mean, why can't it dictate for me? It's like my
Yeah, it's just
fucking legal
it's
argument.
not mature enough for that yet. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I had one other thing. I had a guy. I gotta find his. I gotta look up and send it to you. But I had a guy interview with me, and he had an AI picture. When I interviewed him, he had an AI face. He was completely like not the guy, and he was using a platform. Shit, I forgot the name of the platform, but it was known for manipulating facial features on
Yeah,
stuff.
I've seen what it can do. Yeah, that's unbelievable, man.
And I'm like, dude, I go, but you're not. I go, something's wrong. Your face is glitching. And he's like, oh, I'm using like filters for my face. And then I went and looked at his LinkedIn profile, totally different face. Like 3 weeks later, that's dangerous, man. And that I even reported it to LinkedIn because I'm like, all right, now I know what to look for. But imagine when that gets better, and you're talking like
Yeah,
literally, it could look like me 100%, and it's not
yeah.
me. That's where things get
That
scary.
happens.
So I've
That
already seen
happens.
that from a
Listen,
hiring perspective.
a few years ago, I had a guy hired, and I was like, hey, I'm like, listen, we don't work with other agencies. We hire talent straight up. We don't want to deal with an agency. We don't want to deal with a project manager. We either hire designers or developers like upfront, right? I'm like, are you sure you're the designer? Or I'm sorry, it was for a developer job. I'm like, are you sure you're gonna be the developer? He's like, yeah, yeah. Well, you there's telltale signs, right? After a while, just things didn't really line up. I would ask him to make changes right away or show me things, and he just wouldn't do it in real
Oh
time.
yeah, so you hired someone else to do his work. Is that where you're
Two,
going?
2 months later, I get this guy that comes up out of nowhere and he says, hey, I'm the guy that's been doing all the work for you.
Oh gosh, yeah, I've had so
So
I'll tell you a
dude,
similar
I let
story.
them all go. I mean, I was gonna let him go anyway. I just wanted him to finish the project, but I just let them all go. I'm like, screw
So
this.
I had a similar story on my team, still on my team, great guy. He was working, but he was getting shit done so fast. And I'm like, and I told my one of my directors, I'm like, look, he's getting things done super fast. I mean, I'm fast, and I couldn't get it done that fast. Like
Yeah.
something's odd here. He must is get. Does he have people work for him? Ended up his wife was helping him. So you know what I did? I hired his wife
Oh, you
and
told me
him.
this. Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's
They're both
funny.
on the team.
I
And it was fair because
I
I felt like he was doing double the work and getting paid for, but he was just wanting to do a good job.
I've
So
had a
so now they
similar
both work
situation.
on the team.
One of our main Shopify developers, his name is Ram. He's like our lead developer. Um, Sometimes like when he gets too backed up with some of these projects, he leans on his cousin to help him out. She's also a developer. So
Yeah,
I hired her too.
yeah.
And
Hiring
he was
kind
straight
of
up to
tough.
tell me for a few times he was straight up to tell me, he's like, hey man, I'm under a lot of pressure with this project. I'm gonna hire my cousin. I'm just gonna pay her out. I'm like, listen, I'm like, this is on you. But I'm like, if that's what you have to do, go for it. It turned out so great, we just ended up taking her on.
Yeah, and that's kind of what happened
And
with
that's
me. And I've hired like Kleinman, my the one that does the plugin side. He said can I bring my brother on to help? We'll work side by side. I'm like, go
yeah.
ahead. So it works, but then there's sometimes it doesn't work. Like I've been in
Yeah, but
situations.
the bottom line though, it's so much better when your employees approach it that way. Like they're being transparent.
Yeah,
Hey, I can't handle the work. This is too much. I have the right person to do it that I know they can do it.
yeah. I wasn't transparent. Shahid on my team wasn't transparent, but it was all good intention. Like he wasn't asking for more money. He was actually working like he was doubling the amount of work he could get done and getting paid
Yeah,
for like half. So that's
yeah.
why I was like, no, I want to hire your wife. Let's make this right. Sorry.
That's all right. All right, John. I think this wraps up episode 10.
All right. Well, that's crazy. We got 10 down. So anything any last minute things you want to talk about?
Oh, I got a good one for you. This one's great. Well, we had a customer, no names. I'm not gonna use names or companies, but this is just typical, right? And it's not a bad thing, right? And listen, customers don't know any better at the end of the day, right? We're getting, I don't want to say screamed, but we're just getting reprimanded because on one of our customers' websites, um, a lot of customers when they check out, a lot of their users when they check out, they don't get the right shipping rates, right?
Yeah.
Um, come to find out, a few years ago, somebody had taken data from an old system and brought it into their WooCommerce store. And it was data that wasn't cleansed. It was essentially a bunch of customer profiles that didn't have the right zip codes or
Oh Lord,
the
that's
countries
awful.
didn't match with the address, right? Maybe it was like a Ontario address, but it had a US address.
So
Um,
did you go like I know you've been yelling at me for the last 3 months,
but
but
I never look at it like that. I never say, I know you've been yelling at me. I mean, no, the customer never yelled at us, but she was just like, what the heck are you guys doing? You know, like she was putting it on us. I said, hey, don't worry, we're gonna get to the bottom of it.
yeah,
You know,
that's good.
don't worry about it. Let's figure it out. Hey, guess what's happening? Remember
Wait,
that
well,
import we
how
did?
should you take it?
They were cool with it, man. They were cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, did you build to fix it? Because that's the problem part where it's like,
We're still working on it. So we are going to do a like Google address autocomplete for checkout.
there you go, that
But
works.
we're testing a couple different plugins because we want to see how it behaves with addresses that are already saved. We want to see if it
Yeah.
flags those.
Yeah, you know, when I have ongoing clients and they're good clients, and let's say we run into an issue like that, typically what we try to do is give them a break. Like if they've been already hosed, like sometimes people get hosed by someone prior
Yeah.
to us,
Yeah.
but we'll do like a 50%
I'll
discount
do that.
to
I'll
get
do that too.
across
We'll try to hook somebody up and say, hey, you know what? Let's make things right for you, you know? And then
yeah,
it's almost like you got a customer for life. Unless you screw up really bad or they go out of business, they're pretty much a customer for life, man.
yeah, yeah. We definitely been through the ringer on some of that, and but that in some cases, like yeah, when you rebuild, that's a tough one. Big sites that you rebuild and you have to migrate that data to a new
Oh,
build.
oh,
People
yeah.
don't realize just that alone takes fucking 2 days, especially if there's like 10,000 orders and
Yeah. Well,
it's
I always say it's two runs. There's the dry run and then there's the go live run.
yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to make sure all your data comes over properly. And then before you go live, guess what? You got to sync again.
Yeah. And that's typically what I sometimes would do. That's when you do when you got to import stuff in that is like the live so they got the live site going, but then they have the staging site which you built on, which is only up to a certain point.
Yeah.
What we typically will do is take what we've done in some cases, like the build, like the theme and everything, and apply that to the live site and not fucking do the import of orders because like that might take like 6 hours to do right if you plan it right.
Yeah, that's actually smart. Yeah. Right.
It's so much better
Bring
than
that on
trying to
later. Yeah.
import or do it the other way where you're importing the live stuff into the staging server. It
Yeah,
just
or you do like the last 3 months and then you work on bringing it over afterwards.
yeah, and then
And,
if it's
and,
a rebuild,
and
um,
here's the thing too. If it's going from the same platform over to the same platform, it's
it's
not that
easy.
bad. Yeah, it's
But
not
if you're
that
going
bad.
from Volusion
Oh
to
God, yeah,
WooCommerce,
yeah.
I'm like, just fucking forget about what
Going
you
from
had
anything
over
to anything. I mean, it's funny when customers want to migrate. I mean, that's one of the first things we ask is how many orders do you have? How many customers do you have? Do you want to bring that data over?
because that's time. And they'll save a significant amount of budget. But you
Yeah.
know, a good tool, cart to cart
Oh,
is
I
a
love
really
those guys. I love those guys.
great.
And
They got
it's funny. We used to do it ourselves,
yeah, you
but
can cart to cart,
dude, it was
cart to cart.
it was always like, oh gosh, it was always like pulling teeth, right? And it's not like we couldn't do
Yeah,
the work. We just didn't do it enough that we couldn't do it efficiently, right?
yeah.
Bro, the guys from cart to cart, those guys do it with their eyes closed.
They're all
Here's one
database
catch though.
people.
You gotta buy the insurance when you do it because they don't always get it right.
Yeah,
You
that's
have like their
true.
insurance option, you gotta get that because it'll take you
Yeah,
a few revisions.
I have a guy that I took ChatGPT and made a picture. I said, make him look like Gandalf, and that's Mihai, and he's our assistant admin. He's a data guy. Like he can take a whole just crazy mess of stuff and somehow get it into WooCommerce. I'm like, how'd you do that? He goes, like he's just funny, man. But he
Yeah.
does a great job getting shit in.
Yeah,
But
no, like I said, I got a couple guys that have done that too. It's just like it's not like using cart to cart, dude.
yeah, card to
Like
card is the way to go.
they
And,
just
you know,
they have
if
it
you're
down. And they know all the limitations too. They've done it so
yeah,
much. They know what
so
comes
like.
over, what doesn't, what's going to be problematic. They're going to be like, hey, we can bring this over, but your order numbers aren't going to match.
I always look for partners like that. When building, you can't you can't do everything I mean, you can do everything yourself, but if you want to be efficient and fast,
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
outsourcing just
It's
that part of things,
bro, it's like using the right tools, man. That's all it is. It's just a
right
tool.
tools, man. And that is a
Yeah.
tool. It's
That is
not,
a tool, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, for
And that way
sure.
you can tell the customer up front, like, hey, listen, we're gonna be able to do it. Here's what's gonna cost. Here's what you're gonna have. Here's what you're not gonna have. Are you okay with that? Not
Yeah.
versus like, hey, we did it. Well, how come this isn't here? Oh yeah,
Oh, I usually will put the price to bring in all the data or the price of the project without it. And if it saves them a couple grand, they're happy. You know, they're like, I don't need it. You know, like I
that's
just
true
need a
too. Yeah,
backup of
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. And it's funny that that's always a deciding factor. Like, hey, you know what? We don't really need it. Let's purge it. Or we don't care about historical orders. Let's just bring over like our customer accounts and that's it.
Exactly.
It
And then you
depends.
could just send an email out to every one of the customers doing a password reset, and then they get into their new account on their new system.
Yeah.
And
And if anything, what we'll do is we'll give them a CSV export of their old database. So at least they have some kind of record on
yeah,
historical data, you know? If a customer complains or there's a concern, they always have a reference point. Not like, oh, sorry, that's
what
gone.
I love Airtable too. I have all my
I
orders
love there. You know, I
myself
find it
going into
funny how you love Airtable, which is a hosted
I
app,
love it.
but you hate Shopify, which is a hosted app. I find that so ironic.
It's not that I hate Shopify. I just so Airtable I
Okay,
use
let me
personally for
rephrase it. Let me
myself.
rephrase it. You don't love Shopify as much, even though it's a hosted app. But
Well,
yet,
Airtable
yet
I have way more control than I
but
would
you fully
over.
rely on a hosted infrastructure or a hosted framework.
Yeah, but I still I have full control. It's a relational database that I can control. Like Shopify, you can't control a lot of stuff.
You're telling me you can take that data somewhere else, like export and import it somewhere else?
Yeah, I can feed it wherever I want. I
Well,
actually can feed anything into it, and I can feed anything out of
I
it.
mean, you can do the same thing with Shopify too. You can take all
I,
your customer data and products out.
it's just the whole fucking Shopify Plus thing shit. Sorry.
It's all right. All right. We're wrapping up. I will see you next week, sir.
All right, next week.
Always a pleasure.
What's our topic next week?
I'll get back to you on that.
All right.
See you, John.
See you.